first talk briefly about ShrinkSync, since ShrinkSync is hosting this, and then I'm going to be introducing our wonderful presenter that I really look forward to hearing from. So in terms of ShrinkSync, it's a free app for therapists. It's a digital networking hub where therapists can go on and be able to refer clients out and receive clients, and it's a wonderful way of building your practice. As you notice, one of our tabs includes a lot of upcoming CEU events. So if any of you are holding seminars or part of associations and would like to help promote that, it's a wonderful place to be able to promote what events are upcoming. Don't forget to introduce yourself in our community section if you haven't done so already, and announce any upcoming groups that you may have. And the directory listing that you find on the second tab is a wonderful way to look for residential programs as well as counseling centers in the area of a specific focus that you're looking for. We have many wonderful benefits to being part of our ShrinkSync community. If you haven't seen them already, you also get a weekly digest with our blog post that Rachel Tomasian authors, and it's got some very helpful tips in there, especially regarding websites and SEO, and being able to find your niche and what that's about and the importance of that. So check out our blog if you haven't done so already. Now I would like to bring you back to today's presentation, and our presenter is Mercedes Samudio, and she's an LCSW. She is the owner and founder of The Parenting Skill, where she works as a family and parent coach, taking parents from feelings of frustration and desperation to feeling of empowerment and confidence. Mercedes is also a leading parenting specialist with experience in several prominent parenting skills curricula, including attachment parenting and nonviolent parenting. She also has clinical experience working with parents and children with severe emotional disturbances, foster and adoptive families, and with teen parents. She received her master's in social from the University of Southern California and Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from UCLA. Please help me welcome Mercedes Samudio.
Thank you, Anita, for that introduction. So today we'll be talking a little bit about social media and how to navigate your child's digital life. So let's jump right in. Just a little bit of a housekeeping idea, just letting you know that if you do have questions, you can definitely type them in the chat box and I will be answering them as we go along. So please feel free if anything comes up that you want to kind of get more information on or you want to know more about, you can definitely do that. So like Anita introduced, I am Mercedes Samudio and I'm a family and parent coach, and a lot of people don't know what that is because it's kind of a new term, but pretty much what I do in my family and parent coaching is I work with families to help them figure out more effective parenting skills to kind of help with their child's behavior. So it could be anything like social media usage and their phone usage, or it could be about homework or sleep schedules or morning routines. So what I do is I work with families to help them kind of make those more stable and make them more concise and help parents to be less frustrated, right? So let's talk a little bit about the digital world and kind of what that looks like. So to me, I feel like the digital world is something that we're all tapped into. We all have phones, we all have some type of device like a tablet or a portable laptop or computers, and we're all kind of plugged in at all times. Even if you have your notifications turned off, you're still kind of checking your emails and checking your Facebook, and if you run a business, you're definitely that out all the time. So when it comes to our children, however, we might get a little confused and a little frustrated that they are always plugged in because according to us, they're not running a business, right? So we're thinking, why are they always online? Why are they always talking to somebody? Why are they always telling me, oh, mom, those are just my online friends? And then with the advent of things like Xbox Live and being able to play video games online, I think sometimes parents too get a little nervous about what's going on for their child. They're getting a little nervous about who they're actually talking to online when they're playing their video games. So I know that for a lot of people, clinicians included who are working with families, it's sometimes hard to really understand what we're going to do to help our kids be plugged in, but do it in a way that is effective, that's healthy, and that doesn't impede their social interactions. So when we're talking about your child's online presence, should you even care, right? The question is, yes, you should. And if you do care, there's an effective and healthy way to care. So a good set of questions that you can ask with your child or just with yourself is, what are you doing online? Do you have a set of online friends who you don't know in real life? what excites you about being online? Do you do more than just be social online? And I think these questions, you start off again and curious, like with some curiosity. You're not asking these questions to dig and to kind of find dirt on them, but you're asking them these questions kind of inquisitively. Like, I just want to know, I didn't grow up with online access the way that you did, son or daughter, and I would kind of just like to know, what are you actually doing online? I think when you come to your child with these set of questions and you come to them asking in a curious way, they're more likely to talk to you about it and say, well, I play video games online, or well, I talk to my friends at school online. And I also talk to some friends that I met while I was playing Call of Duty online, and you kind of get to know a little bit more about them. I think the idea of what excites you about being online is a question that when I ask parents to ask their kids this, if they get answers that kind of surprise them. So sometimes kids will say, I'm excited about being online because I'm learning better social skills. So as I'm talking to my friends while I'm playing the video game, as I'm kind of sharing memes and sharing different insights with my friends online, I'm learning how to be more confident in my social endeavors, and it's teaching me how, when I'm in real life with somebody, how to actually do it. So I think it's really important that if you start off with these questions, you're asking your kid, again, to try to figure out more about them. You're not trying to dig up what they're doing online so you can ground them or punish them, but you're trying to figure out what actually makes them happy. Why do they like being online so much? Also, just as a side note, you might find some things that might give you red flags too, which is, when you ask your kid, do you do more than be social online? You might get an answer that might surprise you, that may be a little like, oh, wait, my kid is doing X or Y online, and I'm a little curious about that. My rule of thumb for that, if you hear in any of these answers something that sends up a red flag for you, right at that moment, don't address it. Just kind of say, okay, well, thank you for telling me, what's going on for you, and maybe sitting with yourself for a minute and trying to figure out what it is that made you feel like that's a red flag for you. Get some more information by talking to other colleagues, talking to me. I'm very reachable if you talk to me, or talking, or even looking up online, what does it mean for your child to be engaging in these activities? Because then you can come back with a plan of action to help them decrease some of that activity that might concern you. Again, going more into, should you even care about your child's online presence? I think I've said it before, but my philosophy is that parents should care about everything their child is doing, because everything your child does gives you information into who they are, how they react, and what they know and what motivates them. So when it comes to your child's online presence, those ideas still become really prevalent. So I hear a lot of parents who are focusing on just the dangers and the restrictions rather than focusing on their child's social skills development, like I said earlier, and their ability to adapt to new things. Again, I think for parents, this is scary because a lot of us didn't grow up with the internet at our fingertips. I grew up with the internet, but I had to go to my desktop and I had to log onto a modem, and it took all this time. So it wasn't that accessible all the time. And I think that now kids literally can pick up any device, log on to Wi-Fi, and get whatever they want right away. And I think for a lot of parents, that's scary. But again, I want to reiterate, instead of focusing on the dangers and the restrictions that being on the internet or being plugged in, so to speak, can have on your kid, I definitely think that the idea should be, how do I help my child adapt to this in a healthy way? Because, if we're being honest, all of us as adults, we've had to learn how to adapt to how much we allow ourselves to be plugged in too. So now let's get into social media, which is a huge deal, I think, because almost all of us are on some type of social media site, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, some of the newer ones like Snapchat, Tinder, those type of places. I think all of us are either tapped into one of those social media kind of sites, or we know about them. So social media, in my humble opinion, is who we are socially mass blasted over the internet. If your child is a bully in everyday life, then there'll probably be one on social media too. Or if your child is really meek and humble and quiet, or even a little bit shy, they will be affected that'll be kind of reflected too in their posts and in their shares. Also, I say that if your child is a technophile, right, someone who's really good at learning tech, I put in there hacking into the government. Hopefully your kid's not doing that, right? But they're able to bypass all those high-tech parental controls. You so unwisely trusted the internet guy to play us on your Wi-Fi. Just know that that technophile child will pretty much figure out how to get bypass it. So the idea where I hear a lot of parents saying, well, I just don't have social media in my house, and we don't have internet in my house. That may be well and good in your house, but just like I said earlier, unfortunately, pretty much any device connects to Wi-Fi. So if they have friends have iPods, iPads, Android phones, any type of tablet, they can get access to the internet from there. Also, and I think a lot of parents are starting to realize that schools are starting to use the internet a lot more to help their kids research and do projects. So while the kid is on the internet at school doing their research, let's be real, they're probably kind of clicking open another window and going into their Facebook or going into the internet. So I think the idea is not to say, well, we don't do it in my house. The idea is just to be really wise about it and to say, well, my kid is going to access it at some point, and how am I going to help them develop healthy habits around it, as opposed to just completely restricting it and not giving them any kind of feedback into what they can do. So one of the things, or a few of the things that I'll say to help parents who maybe don't know anything about this, or clinicians who don't know anything about the wonderful world of social media, as I like to consider it or call it, is to build your expertise. So you want to use the internet and you want to use the internet and maybe a social media savvier to help you kind of learn what a social network is and how it works. All of them do different things. All of them have different restrictions. All of them have different age restrictions too. So I think it's really important that before you allow your child to have a Facebook, Instagram, Tinder, Snapchat, Vine account, that you kind of look at a little bit of the privacy settings. You look at what the age is to have it, and you and your child talk a little bit about what they're going to be sharing on there. Of course, I'll be honest with you, your child may make some mistakes and they may share things that they didn't think initially were going to be kind of that big of a deal. But I think the idea is not to chastise them for those mistakes, but to kind of talk it over and say, well, why did you post that one picture? Or why did you make that statement to somebody on that, on their post, and try to figure out what your child's thinking and motivation was behind it, because that's what's going to help them make a better decision in the future, as opposed to just taking their Facebook away completely and them not understanding what they did wrong or understanding why that was wrong. I also think that you can obtain knowledge about social media from your kid themselves. I challenge a lot of parents, especially if you have a tween or a teenager, if they're on Facebook, if they're on any of these social media networks, to sit down with them one day and say, hey, can you teach me what you do on there? Can you teach me how to do this? Can you open me an account so I can see what's going on? At first, they might be a little mortified, like, oh, I don't want my mom on the same social media that I'm on. But at the end of the day, you can actually use it as a bonding kind of routine where you guys talk about it, you get to know more about your kid, you get to see where their expertise is and what their decision-making level is. And that actually might make you feel a little bit better about watching them be on social media. Again, the other side of that is that if you are on there and you're realizing that your child is not making the best decisions, to really just think about, what can I do to help steer my child the right way, as opposed to just shutting it down right away, saying, you know what, it looks like you've been posting a lot of pictures about X, or it looks like you post a lot of statuses about Y, and I'm a little concerned about that. Can you tell me why you always post this type of meme, or why you always like these type of statuses? And again, that's you getting more information on how to guide your child, as opposed to restricting it, and that child doesn't learn anything about why those type of pictures or those type of posts may not be appropriate. The second kind of tip that I was talking about is being vigilant, right? So as your child is on the social media, if you allow them to have one, you should be too. So I'm not saying that you need to be on every single social media one just in case your kid gets an account there, but if your kid's on Facebook, you definitely want to be on Facebook too. And if your kid is on Instagram, you definitely want to have an Instagram too. I see a question here and it says, what age group does this apply best for? Most social media sites say that that the age restriction is 13. I know that sometimes you've got 10, 11, 12-year-olds on there, and that is definitely kind of your decision parents or clinicians, whoever is working with that age group. But I think most social media sites, the age restriction is 13. I would have to check to make sure which ones are which, and I know there's so many new ones coming up all the time, but I think the base age is 13, so 13 and up. There are some social media like sites for younger kids. I know like ABC Mouse and stuff like that have different ways where kids can be social. Even like there's this old one, it probably isn't even up anymore, called Neopets, where you can make a little animal and raise it. Those are social media like sites, and those are geared towards more younger kids. And again, going back to build your expertise, make sure that whatever site your child is going to be on, especially if they're going to be interacting with other people on those sites, to really look at the privacy settings and to really look at the age restrictions, so that way you yourself as a parent kind of just know what type of age this is geared towards and why your kid even wants to be on there. I think, again, the other question here that I see is, in terms of parents monitoring accounts, is there an age that is too old for that? That's actually a really good question. So the quick answer is, it's really based on your child's maturity. I know that is something that most people don't want to hear, because that means you have to really get to know your child and know how mature they are. But rule of thumb, I'd say around 16, 15 or 16, I would start looking at how responsible my child is online. And if 15 and a half, 16, they're actually responsible. I wouldn't monitor them anymore. If they get to be 15 and 16 and you're still having conversation about postings and you're still having conversation about bullying or cyberbullying, you're still having conversations about them hiding and not wanting to, show you their page, then I would continue to monitor it a little bit. But at that age, I would be more of a guide. It wouldn't be me telling you what to post. It would be more me teaching you, well, does that make sense? And what if someone sees that? Or what if, this doesn't get erased? I know that the big pool for Snapchat has been, well, I can just erase it. It'll never be online anymore. But the idea is that no matter what, this is for everyone who's listening, no matter what, if you put it on the internet, it can always be found in some way, shape, or form, unfortunately. So your employer, your teacher might not be able to find it, but someone who's really looking for that information can find it. So I think, again, the rule of thumb, the age that I would say is around 15, you can start checking. Around 16, you can stop. But that, again, goes based on your child's maturity. If you're still arguing with them over social media at 16, I would continue to monitor it and let them know. I wouldn't do it sneakily. I would say, look, I feel like the things that I'm seeing and the things that I'm hearing about your social media usage, I'm a little concerned about still. So do you mind if I, monitor you, or do you mind if I, kind of help guide you a little bit more? So that's kind of my rule of thumb there. So continuing on with some more tidbits or some more tips for what you can do while you are helping your child navigate their digital life, you're helping your child really understand their social media usage, I would talk about setting boundaries and limits. So the best way to set boundaries and limits is to talk to your child about their presence, have an account set up for yourself, and make sure that you have access to their profiles. So again, I'd go again with the age range. I think by the time they're 15, you don't need to have access to it, but between 13 and 15, I would have access to it in some way. That doesn't mean that you can just go in there at all times, because again, you're teaching your child about being responsible and you want them to be able to learn how to be responsible and show that to you. But if you're feeling like, oh wow, auntie told me she saw something on your social media, I would ask your child to open up the social media page with you sitting there. You guys maybe can talk about that post, or maybe have them delete it if it's too offensive, and let them know this is why we can't post things like this. When it comes to setting boundaries and limits for the phone or for the device, we'll get into that in the next kind of thing, but I feel the same way, that if you see your kid using it too much, if you see your kid just only being attached to the phone, like some of us as adults are, for being really honest, but when you see the kid being too attached to it, just kind of starting to say, hey, we're going to turn off the cell phones around 8, we're not going to play with cell phones on Sundays, just things like that, really trying to set some boundaries and limits. That way your child understands kind of what healthy usage looks like. Social understanding, right? The first thing you should know about your child is who they are socially, because that is who they'll be on their profiles. So if you have a child that is really honest and open, they'll be that way on their profiles as well. Jason. I see a comment here. Sorry, I'll take this comment real quick. And it says, I like the idea of being transparent about the monitoring so that you can have an open dialogue. I agree with that. Again, this whole idea of teaching your child how to be responsible online isn't so you can punish them or restrict them. It's so that eventually they can be online by themselves and they not get into trouble and they not get hurt or they not get led astray. So the idea of having that open dialogue allows them to do that. You're talking to them about it. You're saying, hey, let's look at this post, or hey, let's look here and see why that's okay and why that's not okay. And you want to give them, if we're being honest, we want to give them modeling too. So if you're online, you can model good posts by being, a good kind of mobile and internet citizen yourself. So if you're posting a lot of videos or a lot of offensive things, your kids see that and they might do the same thing. So one thing that I tell parents too sometimes is to post really positive messages and post really positive things on their child's page, so that way your child can start to see what a positive post looks like, what a inspirational kind of post looks like. And it doesn't have to be hokey, like I love you and all that stuff, because again, it's public and you don't want to embarrass them. But if you see a positive meme that talks about how to be a good friend, I post it on their wall. If you see a post that's talking about some of the more recent research about what's going on for kids their age, I would post it on their wall. And just kind of, again, you're modeling for them what it looks like to be a good internet citizen, what it looks like to be on social media and use it effectively and healthily. So going again back to the social understanding idea, and thank you so much for your comment. The idea that your child is exactly who they are online as they are socially in real life. So if you have a kid, like I said, that's really loud and obnoxious and fun and they get along with everybody and they're life of the party, they'll probably be that way online, which means they'll have a lot of friends, they'll have a lot of people posting to their page, things like that. If you have a kid that's more shy and more quiet, they might not post as much and they might not post the type of things that will worry you. Some red flag that I like to look at is how your kid talks to other children when you have children over. So if your kid likes to be the boss, so to speak, right? They run what they're going to do. Everyone listens to your child. That's probably how they're going to act online too. So they'll probably have their friends do everything that they say and post the things that they say post. So again, this is not to scare you into saying, oh, I don't want my kid online because they act bad in real life. But this idea of I know what my kid looks like in real life. I'm really aware of who my child is in real life. And that's something that you should be looking at when you are watching them online, when you are looking at how they post and what they're saying. I'd even go as far as to look at what kind of things they're liking and what types of interests they're into, because again, that lets you know a little bit more about your kid. The whole kind of undercurrent of monitoring your child and navigating your child through their social media and their digital life is to understand more about them, to use it to build more your relationship with your child and not to punish them. Um, I also feel like, again, now we're on the devices debate, right? Phones, tablet, and the internet in general. I think that devices can actually be your friend in your family. I know a lot of families are scared of how much their kids use it and scared that their kid's going to kind of pull away from the family. Just to be honest with you, at this age group, like I said, the tween age, the teenage, this is kind of developmentally appropriate for the child to pull away. So like in my day, right, we would pull away by always wanting to be at our friend's house and always wanting to do something outside of the house. Well, kids don't have to leave their house now to kind of pull away right there. They can get on the internet and be gone for hours. I'm sure most families have seen that happen. But I do feel like at the end of the day, devices can be your child's friend and your family's friend too. I think that you have to understand that devices can help you to really understand more about your child. They can help you understand more about your family. I also feel like if you are really savvy, or even if you're not, to learn about some of the apps that you can use. There's a lot of apps for families where you can kind of put your schedules on there. Everyone can be aware of schedules. Everyone can be aware of who's doing what. I think that's really fun. I think for younger kids, most major cell phone carriers have what's called like a chaperone type app where you can always kind of know where your kid is. So if they lose their phone, right, which is positive, if they are somewhere they're not supposed to be, which is also positive, you can kind of be aware of that. So I think, again, going into some of the tips, research any device that you're thinking about buying. Don't just buy an iPad and think, oh, well, they can have it. Don't just buy one of those newer tablets and just give it to them. I would really research the capabilities of that device and understand that most devices, unless they're like a flip phone or so, can get into Wi-Fi. So even if you don't have internet at your house, understand that if your kids at a McDonald's or Starbucks at school, they can get on the Wi-Fi. So really research kind of what those devices are that you're giving your child. Make sure that you know what safeguards the device has and get those activated before you even give your child the device. And again, be open with them. Let them know that you have the Chaperone app on the phone. Say, you know what, I'm giving you this iPhone. However, when I activated it, I got the Chaperone app, and this is why I got it, and these are the reasons that I'm going to use it, and stick to that. Don't just say, I just got it, so if you lose your phone, I can help you, and then be monitoring their every move and not tell them that you're doing that. Again, being open, letting them know, help them understand that this is so that they can be responsible with their phone, and this is why you're doing it. I'm not going to lie and say they're going to be happy about it. But at the same time, it's this idea of being open. It's this idea of, at the end of the day, I want you to be able to use your phone, your tablet, without me hovering over you. Add screen time to the rewards chart if you use rewards charts or any type of rewards kind of systems in your home. So I think that your child can earn more or less. I think, again, a lot of the times parents don't think about other kind of things they can do to kind of motivate their child. And I think adding the screen time, saying, you know what, I'll let you use it an hour longer than normal if you do X, Y, or Z or whatnot. And then again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, model the behavior you like your child to have when it comes to the uses of these devices. I know that I'm guilty of it, and I know most parents are, where you're on your phone because you're doing business, you're trying to get things coordinated, you're trying to make sure that everything is flowing through your day, but your kids are watching you do that too. So if you're always on the phone, if you're on the phone while you're driving, which in California is illegal, so don't do that, but if you're on the phone while you're driving, if you are on the phone while you're at the game, or if you're on the phone while you're at the recital, your kids see that. And then when you tell them, oh, we're at the dinner table, take down the phone, put your phone down, they're going to look at you like, really? You're on the phone all the time. So you definitely want to model for your child what it looks like to have healthy device usage. And if you're someone who's always on your phone, then you might want to talk to your child about how, what, mommy's on the phone because I, run an online business, or daddy's on the phone because I have this project coming up and we're sending emails back and forth. And again, you're being open. You're letting them know that this is a time period that I'm going to be on the phone, or this is why I'm on the phone so much. This, again, is modeling for them that even though I have to be on the phone all the time, this is why. And you can have that dialogue about, well, why do you have to be on the phone all the time? You might be surprised. Some kids might say, well, because I'm trying to talk my friend out of this, or because me and my girlfriend promised each other that we would always, text every minute or X, Y, Z. And then you'd be surprised about why your child's on the phone all the time. So again, I think this idea of dialogue, being open, really kind of modeling for their child what it looks like to be a healthy kind of device user and a internet steward, right, will be really helpful for your overall understanding of your child's usage. Setting rules. So I look at rules like most people do, which is this idea of helping guide your child to make healthier decisions. So I know the rules has a negative connotation. So when you use rules in your home family, your kids are like, oh, not another rule. But the idea is to help them kind of be more healthy and make better decisions, right? So again, I said they're kind of just like guidelines and suggestions, and I feel that way. But no child really takes rules seriously, so you have to be kind of open about how the reason why we have these rules is because blah, 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 X, Y, Z. But I think that you should definitely have certain kind of guidelines in place about the duration on the device. So if you don't allow people to get on their devices until after they get home from school, or until only on Saturdays is the only day that we can use our device, those might be some really strict ones, but they are still, kind of rules that you have in place in your home. Again, the caveat is you have to adhere to those rules too. So if you say we can only use our devices at the end of the day, make sure that your kid doesn't see you using it during the day, because they might kind of test you a little bit on that. The internet usage. So I know that most internet web browsers, as well as most Wi-Fi routers, have some type of way that you can put kind of restrictions on them. So I know like on Chrome, you can have certain restrictions. I know on Firefox, you can have certain restrictions. I'm not familiar with each one, but I think the idea of looking at those type of restrictions and kind of what kind of sites your kid can go to is really important, especially if you have younger kids in the house who just kind of get on the internet and don't really know what they're doing. It's really important that you kind of know what sites they can go to, and maybe even have each of your family having their own accounts. So that way you have some bookmarked sites for them where, the 5-year-old has the Nickelodeon and the Disneyland sites, and maybe the 13-year-old is able to get on the Facebook sites and stuff like that. So looking into what that looks like in your family. Parental controls on the device, I think, again, at a certain age. So I know that younger kids have phones now, like 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds. I'm not going to get into the debate of whether they should or not. I think that's definitely a family kind of decision to make. But if you do have kids who are younger than 16, or 15 rather, that have devices, I would look at the parental controls for that device. Again, each device that comes out, there's so many new ones now, they have their own kind of parental controls. So you definitely want to talk about that at the place where you get it. So if you go to Best Buy, talk to them. If you go to the Verizon store or the Apple store, talk to them about the devices and the parental controls for that specific device. For example, I know that Kindle, the Amazon Kindle device, which is kind of like an e-reader tablet, they have what's called Free Time. And so Free Time is an app that you can buy, and you put on how long the kid can be on the tablet, and it shuts off after that certain time. And the only way that the kid can continue on is to have the password that the parent has to put in. So I think, again, that's one of those ways that having a parental control can help you monitor your child's time. I think passwords and usernames to a certain age you should know. Again, 15, 16 is kind of that age where I start looking at how to wean them off and give them their own control. But up until then, knowing your kids' passwords and usernames, especially for Xbox Live, especially for like Facebook and stuff, I think will just help in general. I think it'll help you to be able to monitor it. And again, you don't want to ever go in there without their permission and talking to them about it. But the idea that I do know how to, get in there if you're, not behaving as effectively as I think you should be. And then again, consequences. I think that there should be some clearly defined kind of consequences that you talk to your child about. For instance, if I say that all cell phones go off at 8 o'clock and to give them to me, and it's 9:30 and you're still you figured out how to go in the bathroom and be on there, then unfortunately I'll have to take your cell phone away for a day, an hour, or whatnot. But I think that these rules and these consequences should be very clearly defined, so that way your child knows that if I don't do what I'm supposed to do with my device or on the internet, I'm going to get this consequence. My rule of thumb for consequences is it shouldn't be punitive, and it shouldn't be to hurt your child. It should be to help guide them to make better decisions. So again, taking away the cell phone for a week because they went over an hour actually doesn't really fit for me. I would say, okay, so you went over an hour, so that's an hour that you won't be able to use it tomorrow. You go over 2 hours, okay, if you hid it from me so I couldn't find it, well, okay, now I'm going to take it for a day. Like kind of make sure that whatever consequence fits the crime, right? And make sure that it's not punitive, and that you're talking about the consequences, and that you don't just make them up on the spot because you're mad. So give me that phone now. I'm not giving it to you for a week. That doesn't really help them learn, well, what did I do? Why do I get my phone taken away? You know what I'm saying? I think also that devices can help build your child's social skills. So I think that children use devices now the way we use telephones and party lines when we were growing up as a way to communicate. I think that you can also try texting your child instead of calling them all the time. So I know a lot of parents have to call to make sure that the kid is okay after school. If someone else picks them up, try texting. Try sending them a Facebook message. If you don't know what a Facebook message is, turn around and ask your kid, what is Facebook Messenger? But there are different ways to kind of communicate with your child other than calling now, and they use those ways as well. Friend them on social media and send them funny quotes, like I've said before, or some of their statuses, even if you don't always get it. Like it and say, hey, that was funny. I don't really know what character you're talking about, but that was funny. And again, you can use it as relationship building. Let your child teach you the difference between liking a status and commenting on a status. And, trust me, it'll be a fun conversation. How do you like, a bad status? Does that mean you agree with it, or does that mean that you just are supporting them? Have fun. That'll be a good conversation to have with your kid. And if you're curious about the amount of time your child is on the device, I would check in with them to see what they're doing without chastising. Again, I think I mentioned that earlier, but the idea is figuring out why they use the device so much. What does it do for them? What benefits they get out of it? And then share with them some of your concerns. So don't just listen to them, but say, I didn't know that you and your girlfriend had decided to text each other every hour for whatever reason, but I'm still concerned that you guys are texting so much, you guys aren't talking, or you guys aren't seeing each other. Like share your concerns, but at the same time, listen to what their device usage looks like for them, because they might not even realize that they're doing it so much because they're enjoying it so much. I also want to say too that yes, you can take the device away. I think that some parents get really scared. Well, I gave it to them already. I can't take it away, or they're worried about some of the kind of pushback that they'll get from their child. And I think that's why I said earlier, when you talk about the consequences, I think it should always match the crime, and I think that it should be something that you talk about way before they even get the device. As soon as your child says, "Can I have an iPad?" you should start talking about what that's going to look like in your house. As soon as your child says, "Can we get Wi-Fi in the house?" if you don't already have it, start looking at what that's going to look like to have Wi-Fi, where everywhere in the house we can connect to the internet, and look at what that looks like. I think that most of our devices, especially for kids, depending on what the reason for having a device is, it really is a privilege, and it's not a right or a necessity. I think that most kids like having that kind of access. I think most kids enjoy having it, and if we're being honest, I don't think there's any kid that I personally know that doesn't have some type of device, whether it be a tablet or a phone or anything like that. So I think it feels like it's a necessity for kids and even for parents, but I think you really have to understand that it's a privilege, and it's something that you have to not earn, but it's something that you have to show that you can take responsibility for. For me, I liken it to having a video game system when I was younger. It was something nice to have, but I didn't need to have it, and I had to kind of earn it, to get my Xbox or my PlayStation when I was younger. So what I would say is never take away a device because you're scared it's ruining your child's social life. Again, most of the examples I've given and some of the tips that I've given let you kind of learn more about your child's usage and social media kind of presence, so you don't just take it away because you're mad. Like in the middle of the car because they got an F, you don't just rip it out their hand because you're mad at them, but really having that discussion about, is their social media usage, is their device usage contributing to why they can't pay attention in class, and talking about that and what that might look like. Always, always, always discuss why the device is taken away and give them a way to earn it back. So you don't just take it from them because I said so. I'm taking it away because I feel like for the past 3 days I've asked you to turn it off at 8 and you haven't done that. So I think it's really important that I take it away for a while and we talk about why it's so hard for you to turn it off at 8 o'clock. What's going on? What do you need to continue to be connected to that you can't turn it off? And then if we can figure out a good solution together, I'll give it back to you on Saturday, or I'll give it back to you on Sunday. But always, again, have that discussion. I think making screen time a part of your weekly schedule by assigning days and times of usage will be really helpful. When taking a device away, be sure to do it for reasons that are already set between you and your child. So again, I reiterate, don't make up reasons on the spot just because you're mad at them, or because you guys are at a family function and they're sitting in the corner on their tablet. Don't just take it out their hand because you feel like they're not participating. Really kind of tell them, we're going to grandma's house and we're going to be there for an hour or so. Are you going to have the phone on? Are we going to leave it at home? What are we going to do? Like I would have that discussion before we left. And again, avoid taking away the device because you're mad at your child. I think, again, that doesn't help them learn healthy reasons for using it. It helps them kind of fight back and be more rebellious. And it also helps them to kind of be more sneaky with it. So you take it away because you're mad, and now what they do is they'll start hiding it or leaving it at their friend's house so they can always have it, and make sure that they always have it so you can't take it away from them. So again, the whole idea is let's have this dialogue about healthy usage. Let's have this dialogue about how to be effective and not unhealthy about our usage. and then that'll help kind of foster better decisions. So I know that we're kind of towards the end of it, and I want to know if anybody had any questions, if anybody had any ideas that they wanted to kind of talk about. I think this is a really big kind of topic, and I think that some of the ideas that I presented, they seem very vast and they seem very scary. I think for some parents, especially who haven't had this discussion yet, or if you're smack dab in the middle of dealing with some of these issues, I think it's really good to open it up for questions and let people just kind of ask, what do you think about X, or what do you think about Y? Or my kid's 15 years old and she's always on the phone and never even looks up to say hi to anybody. So, really talking about some of that stuff. I just want to let people know to and direct you to a blog post about that, where I talk about social media devices in your home, and that link is right up there for you, and I think it should be being sent out as well at some point, so you can definitely access it. And it talks a little bit more in depth about some of the things that I've talked about, and it's a 3-part series, so definitely go through all of them. So I guess I'll open it up now for any questions that people may have. Oh, okay, cool. So the question that I see here: how do you feel about social media iPads being used as a reward and a punishment? I think that if they're already in your house, it should be added to your reward system. I don't feel like it should be a major punishment, but it's this idea that, okay, iPads are in the house. Mom has one, dad has one, sister has one. Okay, let's look at how we're using it. Let's set a schedule of how we're using it. And I think the reward should be you get more screen time. The reward shouldn't be you're going to get an iPad. I think, again, that's a discussion that you should have with your family, because I think giving somebody a phone or a tablet as a reward or as a birthday present without talking about it is actually going to cause a lot more tension in your family than you think. So I think if you're going to have them in your family, have them. It shouldn't be tied to a reward or a punishment. Once they're in the house, setting up that schedule, setting up some of the guidelines, talking about what happens if you misuse it, what happens if you use it in a way that's not appropriate, that'll be kind of the consequence for it. Kind of that's what I'm thinking of. So it shouldn't be like, I'm going to buy an iPad if you get straight A's. I don't love that. I think, again, if you haven't talked about what an iPad looks like, what's going to happen once we get the iPad in the house, that straight A's might turn into straight F's because I'm on the iPad all the time. So you definitely want to be really aware of it not being a reward for A's or a punishment. I'm going to take away your iPad because you got F's. Again, talking about it, discussing it, being really open about what it looks like to have these devices and to have access to these social media accounts in our house.
There's another question.
I know a lot of my clients use taking away their child's iPad or phone as a punishment. What are your thoughts about that? Again, when I work with clients, I feel the same as well. I've had a lot of my clients say, well, I just took it from them, And then my next question is, why did you take it? And they tell me why. And it's usually because they were acting out, they were doing something inappropriate, not just with the device, but just in general. They weren't doing their chores, anything like that. And then I say, well, can your kid get it back? And I usually hear crickets. So they haven't talked about, how does my kid get it back? What was the reason for me taking it in the first place? Why am I so angry about whatever it is they did? And I think that that's what causes more tension, because number one, you didn't talk about how your kid could get their iPad or their phone taken away. And then let's just say you didn't, but now you've taken it away. Well, mom, how do I get it back? Dad, how do I get it back? Most parents don't have that piece set up because they took it away in anger. So I really like to explore with families what it looks like, again, to have these devices in the house, what it looks like when anyone in the home misuses it or doesn't do what they're supposed to do. And then outside of the phone, what happens when you hit your brother? What happens when the teacher has to call me and tell me you're suspended? What happens when you get an F in your class? Does the iPad, does the phone become part of that punishment? I say no. I think that the punishment should fit the crime. So if it has to do with school, let's look at what the consequences are going to be for not doing what you're supposed to be doing in school. If the issue that you did, or the misappropriate behavior that you did, unappropriate, not misappropriate, that's not a word, unappropriate behavior that you did, if that's something that has to do with the phone or the iPad, then I would again, the consequence would be for that. So I think it's really important to talk about what the actual issue is, what did you actually do, and then going with the consequence that matches that. So that's kind of how I feel about that. Another question here is, what's your advice for clinicians working with children to explore their clients' behavior online? I think that's really multifaceted. I would say one of the ways that I do it is I start off just asking them, are they online? What do they use it for? A lot of kids aren't open right away about, I just use it for my research paper. I just use it to do my projects, And I say, that's good. So do you know anything about this site? Do you know anything about that site? And they'll start to tell me, yeah, well, I know about that. And so we talk about how they use it. Do they use it? What's their name? I like to know that my kids' usernames, they're very fun usernames, and we talk about it. I am someone who's actually really tapped into it. So if my kid, feels like they don't want to talk to me, I'll open up my, Facebook, because I feel like it's pretty professional, and I'll show them what I do. I'll say, well, this is what I use my Facebook for. This is what I use my XYZ for. And then that usually opens up a discussion. I think that as a clinician, you have a little bit more leeway with your kids, because they know that you're not going to punish them for doing X or Y. So I would open it up with, what, I want to get more of a better picture of who you are. So it sounds like you've given me who you are at school, who you are at home. So who are you online? Tell me who you are. A lot of kids, again, they play Xbox Live, and I get to talk to them a little bit about who their character is on Xbox Live and who they play with and all those different things. And you'd be surprised to find out more about that kid's personality, where you have a kid that won't talk to you, and then you start to say, well, who do you play on Call of Duty? And they're, oh, I'm this guy, and I'm this guy, and I'm that. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute, you seem so quiet. And again, as a clinician, you can use that to kind of pull some of those personality traits out of them. So I think, to answer your question overall, I would explore their behavior online by kind of getting a good picture of what that behavior is. And as the clinician, you're listening for different things that are positives, that are strengths that they're using. And then you're also listening for a few red flags. So if you have a kid that says, oh yeah, I always play with, people I don't know. And I said, do you ever play with anyone you do know? No. Do you ever talk to anybody you don't know? Those are kind of red flags for me, where it's like, okay, so you play online all the time. You don't know anybody who you're playing with. You haven't even added them to your friends list. What does that mean about your sexuality? Who are you socially, and things like that. So yeah, I asked them how much, they play. I know Minecraft is a big one that kids play a lot of, or World of Warcraft and things like that. So I, talk to them about their online. Are you always on there? Do you come home and get right on there? Or do you come home, hang out with your friends for a little bit, do your homework, and then maybe the last hour of the night you might play it? Again, getting this whole kind of picture of who they are online. That's kind of my rule of thumb. Yeah, thank you for these questions. These are really cool. I see that someone else is writing another question, but these are really good questions, so keep them coming. I'm enjoying answering them, because I think they're a lot of the ones that I hear as well when I'm working with families. I had one kid tell me a couple weeks ago, I said, oh, do you have Facebook? Oh, Facebook's for, old people. I was like, am I old? Have I reached that part of my life? So yeah. I would also say too, while I'm waiting for the next question to come up, I would also say that some of the newer social media kind of profiles or accounts coming up, I would be really aware of. As a parent, I think it's easy to be detached and to not know. Like I said, Tinder or Snapchat and Vine, and parents might have gone, what are those? If you said that when I said those three, right now go on Google and look them up. Even if your kid doesn't have any of them, just look them up and what they are. Just kind of have a running kind of understanding of what they are. Even if your kid has never mentioned them, even if you've never heard of them, just kind of have that running understanding of what are some of these newer ones that are coming out. Because eventually their friend will tell them about it, they'll get an account, and they'll be on there in some way, shape, or form.
There's another question.
All right, I see another question here. As a clinician, how do you work with clients who are bullied or bullies online? There is so much that happens online. Cyberbullying is what it's called. There is an organization that I always direct people to, and it's called stopbullying.org or stopbullying.com. But it's something that I really like sending families to, because they talk a lot about cyberbullying. So cyberbullying, I think, is something that's really difficult to deal with, because a lot of the times kids will make up anonymous profiles, and they'll make up anonymous accounts to bully kids. Here's something that I always tell my kids to do. If they're getting bullied online, I immediately tell them to get off of whatever social media account they're on. So if it's Facebook, close that account, delete the account, like literally get off of it. If it's Instagram, get off of it. If it's Snapchat, get off of it. The reason why I say that is because that immediately stops the cyberbullying right then. They can't cyberbully you if you're not online. Then what I would do is I would try to investigate with my child, who do they think could be doing this? Now, if it's someone on Facebook and they know who the person is, just as a parent or as a clinician, start writing those kids' names now. So it's Mercedes, it's Rachel, it's Anita, it's these kids, and your kid knows who it is. If it's more anonymous and your kid's like, I have no idea who would bully me, I don't know who, I would kind of start to investigate, again, as a clinician, what's going on at the school, what's the social climate, what does your social climate look like? Do you ever get bullied? What happens when you're walking down the halls? What happens when you're in class? And again, get a really good profile of what's happening for that child socially, because that'll let you know, okay, I'm always getting called bucktooth. I'm always getting called Four Eyes, or I know that there's a lot of LGBT, unfortunately, hate crime that happens. So I'm getting called gay, or I'm getting called, the F word or whatever. I think that once you get that good bullying profile, you can actually start to target what's going on for that child. You can actually start to help them understand what's happening for them. And if they have, if you can build that confidence to kind of fight back, you can. If you can get the school authorities involved, really start to build that profile so I know what's actually happening. Again, a lot of parents say, I don't want my kid to be run off the internet. this is my deal. The internet is always going to be there. If you deactivate your account now and you figure out what the bullying is, you can always get them another account later. My whole deal is to stop the bullying right away, is to get off of it. Whatever social media profile the kid is being bullied on, get off of it. Do not be on it anymore until you figure out and get to the bottom of who's doing the bullying, where it's coming from, and why it's happening. So I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, definitely clarify more or ask for more clarification, but that's kind of my rule of thumb with cyberbullying. Another thing that I see a lot of too is that sometimes kids get bullied in real life and it just kind of gets transferred over to the cyberbullying. I think that might actually be kind of an easier way to deal with it, because I know for a fact that Mercedes is the one who's always bothering me. And then when I get home at night, she's sending me all these messages and posting all these things on my wall. I think, again, the whole idea of having that profile and understanding how, why, what, who, that really helps. And I think that helps even in face-to-face bullying. Who's doing it? Why is it being done? What's the school doing? What are the parents doing? As a clinician, what can I be doing to look at it? I also think that dispelling a lot of the myths about bullying helps kids to talk about it. So bullies aren't always these kids who have no confidence. Sometimes bullies are kids who have all the confidence in the world. And they know that they can get away with it. So I think sometimes dispelling the myth. I tell clinicians as well as parents, don't tell your child to fight back right away until you understand who the bully is and where it's coming from. Sometimes kids are being bullied by proxy, meaning I'm the bad guy, but I'm having all the other kids do it for me. So if I'm the bad guy, you don't know it's me, but I have Anita yelling at you every lunch, and you fight Anita. Well, you haven't actually stopped me. I'll just get somebody else now. Okay, so Anita's gone. Now I'll get somebody else. So I really believe in having a good profile of what's actually happening and good foundation of what's happening, whether it be cyber or not, to really kind of understand who should I be targeting, who should I be looking for. Okay, another question. When and how much do you think is helpful to get the school involved or informed? That's a really good question. What I'll say is this: I believe that you can get the school involved when you as a parent and you as your child feel like you can't deal with it yourself. So for instance, I know sometimes, and I don't want to be sexist or anything like that, I'm just using this as an example, but the idea that sometimes girls pick on other girls because of how they dress or how they do this or how they do that, I wouldn't get the school involved on that, because I think that that's something that kind of does unfortunately happen as we're growing up and teaching our girls how to be more confident in themselves and things like that. You can kind of deal with that between you and your child maybe, or your child and the parent of that other child, you can even deal with it. I think that for me, my rule of thumb for getting the school involved is when it's happening so much so that the teachers have told you, oh, I always see this happening, or that your kid says that every day, I can't sit in Miss Mercedes' class without so-and-so saying something, and you realize that no one's doing anything. And I think as a parent, you have that gut feeling, wow, she's always in Miss Mercedes' class, and Miss Mercedes never sees this, she never says anything. That's when I, as a parent, would take it upon myself to go to the school, talk to that teacher, talk to the school administrator, just say, hey, for the past week, my kid has said that every time she's in Miss Mercedes' class, she's getting picked on. And it appears that the teacher's not saying anything. Can we look into that more? Can we see what's going on? And again, going back to that profile, knowing kind of what's going on, sitting with their child and letting them know that I'm only going to go to the school if you feel like we can't figure it out together. Because again, kids feel like I don't want to be a snitch, I don't want to be picked on even more. I don't want people to think that I'm a wuss because I told my mom, all those things. I think, again, those are really valid concerns that you want to listen to your child about. But at the same time, if there are adults on the campus who you have heard from your child and from your child's friends or from other people who are at the school that, yeah, they never do anything when my kid gets bullied, or I had to take my kid out of that school because they never do anything. Listen to some of those and kind of say, you know what, I'm going to start to investigate as myself as a parent. I'm going to go and I'm going to ask the assistant principal, the dean, the teacher, have you seen this? And if you have what have you done to kind of help my child not get bullied or help my child not get into trouble? On the other hand, with cyberbullying, unfortunately, I would not get the school involved on that. And here's the reason why. Most of the time, the schools don't know what's going on in the cyber world. I think that the school will do their best, to have a campaign, maybe make some couple announcements about it. But when it comes to cyberbullying, I think that that's something that, unfortunately, as a parent, you're probably going to have to work through yourself. I would work with a clinician on that. I would work with someone else on that. I would work with a school counselor on that. But I think it's really hard to get the school involved when things are happening over Facebook, when things are happening over Twitter, because, unfortunately, that's not the school's jurisdiction. They can't get on Twitter and tell the kids to break up their fight. They can't get on Facebook and referee some of those things. So with cyberbullying, that's going to be more of a kind of active thing for you as a parent. You're going to have to kind of get out there and get some more help on that. But if it's face-to-face bullying, if it's face-to-face bullying that's happening in the school, on school grounds, then definitely you really want to gauge, if there's any other adults who know what's going on, and if they do, what have they done? And if they haven't done anything, to really look at, okay, my kid is always getting bullied, and things like that. If I can be honest, sometimes schools I know will dismiss some of those things. Oh, those are just kids. Oh, boys are just being boys. Oh, you know how girls are. At that point, I might take it a little higher, maybe to the district level, or maybe talking to someone a little bit higher up on that point, just because I think it's really important that it is addressed. I know a lot of schools have bullying initiatives, but sometimes that's just what it is, an initiative. It's just something they have kind of going. They're not really being proactive about it. So again, definitely start off with knowing, I guess if I can give you a step-by-step thing, figure out what actually is happening. Is it cyber? Is it face-to-face? If it's face-to-face bullying, talk to your child about when does it happen, who sees it, have you ever said anything to any adult? Is there ever any adults around when this happens? Once you find out who those adults are, talk to them and say, if it's a campus aide, because it happens at lunchtime, I would talk to that campus aide and say, hey, have you ever seen this happen to my kid? Or my kid told me yesterday that some kids threw some food on him, and that you were standing right in the vicinity. Did you see that? Get some more information. And then again, talk to the school about making sure that it gets addressed and that you can kind of figure out what to do if your kid needs to be moved to another class, X or Y. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that question. And again, if I'm going on, I'm not answering your specific question, please type in the chat and say, nope, that's not it, or give me some more clarity on what you meant by that. That would be really helpful. Okay. Okay, thank you. I'm happy that helped. All right, thank you. And I don't know how we're doing on time, but are we good?
We're okay.
Okay,
if there
cool.
are any other questions,
Cool,
great.
cool,
If
cool.
not, we can
That was a really good question too, and I'm glad that I was able to give you some advice to kind of help with that. If there's any more questions, again, throw them at me. You got me here. I know when I talk to some of my kids too about Tinder and about some of the, like I know Match.com, Zoosk, I'm just throwing out ones that I've heard of before, that they're on there. Most of my kids are trying to figure out things socially too. And that's something that I've started to realize, that when kids are on social media, they're trying to figure out their social profile as well. So I know before, for us adults, we would just talk to people. So if I had a problem with a girl, I had to see her at school. If I, wanted to talk to a boy, I had to figure out how to talk to him. And I think a lot of the times kids are trying to do those same things, but now they have kind of the mask of online. So I can get on Facebook and kind of flirt with him without ever talking to him. And I can get on Facebook and kind of be mean to her, without ever saying anything. And I think that's something too that we as adults have to understand, that kids aren't just online to play around, but kids are also trying to figure out who they are socially, the same exact ways that we were trying to figure that out when we were teenagers and when we were kids. So I would talk to my kid too, if you feel like they are cyberbullying, if you kind of saw them on Instagram, you're like, oh, why did you post that picture? Try to figure out what's going on. What are they doing? Why are you posting that? Again, I know I've said it before, but having that perspective of my child is trying to figure out who they are socially, and being on some of these social profiles lets them do that. Being on Xbox Live and being online, doing these online gamings, it allows my kid to do that. So I would really kind of tap into who my kid is socially. If I didn't know before, I'd watch them while they're playing, Xbox Live. If I didn't know who my kid was before, I kind of peek over and say, oh, I see some of these things you're posting. What is that about? Or what does that mean? Because again, it starts to give you more information for who your kid is socially and who they're developing, how they're developing socially. I know when you're a kid, you see all your friends all day, so you don't really have to deal with things. But when you become a teenager, I think your social kind of life changes so drastically and so quickly that you don't even know yourself as a teenager, what I'm supposed to do or how I'm supposed to deal with things. And I think sometimes that comes through social media as well. So again, as a parent, and even as a clinician, if you're starting to see your child or the child kind of navigate, socially awkward, you see that they're kind of not knowing how to talk to people, I would kind of help them do it online as well as face to face. I usually do it with my kids. We'll talk face to face about, how would you say this if you were looking at me in my face? And they'll say one way, and I say, okay, well, if you saw me on Facebook, how would you say it? And it's usually another way. And it's interesting to talk about why you would say it to my face one way, but then get on my social profile and say it another way, and kind of talk about that. And that can be a question that if you're a parent at home with your kid, I would say that. I'd say, if I told you your dress was ugly, what would you say to me face to face? And then if I told you your dress was ugly on Facebook, what would you tell me? How would you respond? And kind of get kind of a good feel again of how your child, what do they say when they're online versus what they say when they're face to face with somebody. And again, that's a teaching moment for you as a parent, as a clinician. You can say, if you're going to say that to someone online, I think that you should be brave enough to say it to their face too. And if you would not say it to their face, I wouldn't put it online, just like that, and kind of give them that kind of little bit of advice. So yeah.
Saying, oh, I like that.
Good. I see. Yeah, you said, oh, I like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And again, the whole idea is that you're trying to help your child, you're guiding them, right? You're trying to figure out, how does my child act? What would they do? How do they react? Who are they? And again, I'll go back and say, because for a lot of kids, their social profile changes drastically once they get to junior high, because they've got so many other kids, so many other grades there. Once they get to high school, they're interacting with so many ages of people that overnight, their whole social profile, you might think, oh, my kid loves staying at home in their first day at school, at high school. Now they want to go out every weekend. Things just change so drastically that it's really good to kind of talk to them about how would they act online versus how would they act face to face. And you'll start to get some of those little bitty tidbits about, oh, wow, she would say that online, but not someone's face. Okay, let me help, navigate her and teach her how you shouldn't say things behind someone's back, almost, if you will, on social media, if you wouldn't say that face to face. I also too talk to kids a lot about how Facebook and how some of the social media is looked at as you get older. So for me, for instance, I'll open up and say that Facebook started when I was in college, so 2004. And some of the things that I posted then, I would never think about posting now, because I've grown up and I'm older now. And I think that that's something that sometimes kids don't think about. So they're 14, 15 posting these things, and they don't realize that when they get to be 21, that's still there. That's still on the internet somewhere. So really kind of helping them understand that, again, not in a you better do as I say type of way, but just in a way that what you do online stays with you. Yes, you can delete it. Yes, you can start all over, but it'd be better to kind of be smarter about what you post and to be aware of what you post. My rule of thumb, and I teach my kids that as well as my parents sometimes, because you'd be surprised how many parents don't know how to be effective online. But I teach my kids, my rule of thumb is this: if you wouldn't do it, say it, or act that way in public around everybody, I wouldn't put it online. So if you're about to share something and you would not blast that at your next family, get together, I wouldn't put it online. If you wouldn't share that at the next time you go to a dance, I wouldn't put that online. Or think about, oh, I'm about to post this picture real quick, this selfie in the bathroom. If you wouldn't, take a bathroom, if you wouldn't take a picture in front of everybody in your bra and in your panties out in the streets, I wouldn't do that in the comfort of my home either. And again, I say these things because I think sometimes kids don't realize that how they are viewed online is what people will see when they see them in person as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, those are just some rules of thumb I'm kind of throwing out there to see. And I see someone else is typing. They're probably still typing. We have about 3 minutes. Okay. We have a few more minutes to go. So I see this comment says, Mercedes, you are so wise. Thank you for your practical and sage advice. Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Thank you for being here with me. And I hope, again, that some of these things will have been helpful for you, and that you can go through the slides again and just kind of pick what you think will be best for you and your family. So thank you for being here. Someone else is typing. Yes, someone else is typing. You're welcome. Yes, it says, yes, thank you. This has been great. So I'm happy that I was able to help you guys. And I hope that, again, you can go through the slides again and kind of go through and pick what will be helpful for you and your family, and rewatch it, because I know I was saying a lot of things. So maybe rewatch it and pull some of those tips and those tidbits from that. So thanks again. I want to thank StrengthSync for having me. Thank you. It was really exciting to kind of share some of this information with you. So thank you. And I'm also going to just... Okay, and Anita's going to come over. Thank you, Mercedes. Okay. Yay. That was wonderful. Mercedes, that was a very nice and very informative presentation or webinar. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Just real quick, as soon as you close out, you're going to notice the form for the evaluation. Please complete those. And when you do, we will email you, or Rachel will be emailing you the CEU certificate so you get credit for this. For those of you who may have missed the portion of the webinar, the recording will be on the StrengthSync site as well, and I'm sure Mercedes may be putting it on her website as well. And just to let you know about our upcoming webinars, our next one is going to be on March 24 with Melissa Hall at 9 a.m. And the topic on that will be 8 great tools to make documentation easier. And a week after, on March 31st, we're going to have Dr. Bruce Gale with us. I'm really looking forward to his as well. And he will be presenting on ways to make forms work in clinical practice. So those are our upcoming webinars, and would love to hear from you guys as well as to the type of topics you would be interested in the future. Thank you again, and we'll see you on the StrengthSync community.